She texted it like it was nothing, like it didn't carry the weight of everything we had built together. "I'm taking a spontaneous trip with my ex, don't be jealous." And in that moment, something inside me didn't break, it went quiet. I stared at my phone longer than I should have. Not because I didn't understand what she said, but because I understood it too well. There was no confusion, no missing context, no misunderstanding. Just clarity I wasn't ready for. Her name was Sloane Harrington, and until that message, I thought I knew exactly who she was. We lived in Scottsdale, Arizona, in one of those polished neighborhoods where everything looks stable from the outside. Manicured lawns, white stone driveways, quiet streets where nothing seems to go wrong. But behind closed doors, stability isn't something you see. It's something you feel. And lately, I hadn't been feeling it. I'm Nolan Prescott, and I had spent the last 2 years convincing myself that what we had was solid. Sloane wasn't reckless. She wasn't impulsive. She was calculated in a way that made her seem calm, composed, always in control. That's what made the message hit harder. Because if she did something like this, it wasn't random. It was intentional. I didn't respond immediately. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I knew anything emotional would only give her leverage. So I typed slowly, carefully. Why would I be? 3 words. But they weren't passive. They weren't defensive. They were a boundary disguised as indifference. She read it instantly. I watched the typing bubble appear, disappear, reappear. Then her reply came in. "It's just a trip, Nolan. You're overthinking already." That line, that specific line, it told me everything I needed to know about where we stood. Because when someone tells you you're overthinking, they're usually trying to avoid accountability. Before we go further, drop in the comments and tell me this. If someone you were dating said they were traveling with their ex, would you trust them? Or would you walk away right there? I didn't argue. I didn't question her. I didn't ask who planned it, how long it was, or why she didn't mention it before. Because the truth is, I already knew those answers didn't matter. Respect isn't about explanations. It's about instincts. And her instinct wasn't to protect the relationship. It was to test it. The next morning, she left. No goodbye beyond a quick, distracted hug. No reassurance. No attempt to soften what she had already done. Just normal behavior. As if everything was fine. That's when it became clear. This wasn't about a trip. This was about power. Sloane had always been the one slightly ahead emotionally. The one who decided when things were serious. The one who set the pace. And I had let her. Not because I was weak, but because I believed patience was strength. Now, I was starting to question that. Day 1, I didn't text her. Day 2, she didn't text me either. By day 3, the silence wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was revealing. Because when 2 people stop reaching for each other, you find out who was holding the connection together. And it wasn't her. On the 4th day, she finally sent something. "You've been quiet." Not "I miss you." Not "Are you okay?" Just an observation. I read it, locked my phone, and went back to what I was doing. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't reacting. I was observing. That night, I met Carter Whitfield for dinner. Old friend. The kind of person who doesn't say much, but when he does, it lands. I told him everything. Not dramatically, just facts. He listened, nodded once, then said, "You're not confused. You just don't like the answer." That line stayed with me longer than the conversation itself. Because he was right. I wasn't unsure about Sloane. I was unsure about what I was willing to tolerate. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. Not anger, not sadness, just alignment. I realized something simple. If someone puts you in a position where you have to question your value, you've already been undervalued. Later that afternoon, Sloane called. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice was lighter than I expected, almost casual. "You're acting weird, Nolan." I leaned back in my chair, looked out at the quiet street. "No," I said calmly. "I'm just not playing along." Silence, then a slight shift in her tone. "What does that mean?" It meant everything, but I didn't say everything. "I think you know," I replied. She exhaled. Not frustrated, not emotional, just calculating. "It's not that serious." There was again the minimization, the quiet dismissal of something that mattered. And in that moment, the power dynamic shifted. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to be understood. I was deciding whether I wanted to continue. Then it shouldn't be a problem if I step back, I said. Another silence. Longer this time. Before we continue, I want you to think about this. When someone downplays your boundaries, do you adjust your expectations or do you adjust your presence? Her voice changed slightly. Not softer, just more aware. So, you're ending things over a trip? I almost smiled. No, I said. I'm ending things over what the trip represents. That was the difference she didn't want to acknowledge. Because it was never about geography. It was about priorities. She didn't argue. She didn't fight. She didn't even try to convince me otherwise. She just said, okay. And that, okay, told me more than any explanation ever could. 2 years, reduced to one word. But strangely, it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like clarity finally catching up to reality. The following weeks were quiet. Not lonely. Just quieter than I was used to. No overthinking. No second-guessing. No subtle tension disguised as normal conversation. Just space. And in that space, I started noticing things I had ignored before. How often I adjusted my behavior to avoid conflict. How often I dismissed small red flags because they didn't seem big enough. How often I confused patience with tolerance. Sloane didn't destroy the relationship. She revealed its limits. And I had been the one stretching those limits for too long. A month later, she reached out again. Can we talk? Simple message. No context. No emotion. I looked at it for a long time. Not because I was tempted, but because I was curious. And I put my phone down. Because not every message deserves a response. And not every chapter needs a continuation. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is to let the silence answer for you.